I appreciate you being here. And it's the second time on a podcast or
It
on
is.
an
It
interview.
is. Thank you for having me again. Well, thank you for coming
Thank
to
you for
our
having
event.
me. Like,
Yeah. Thank you for coming to our event. Yes, I am Violeta Ware. I'm the co-chair of the Social Justice Committee for the Asian Network at Yale. And a lot of people don't know, but the subcommittee of social justice actually was founded as a response from the Asian Network to the Black Lives Matter movement. It was created to amplify the Black voices within New Haven as a gesture of allyship and giving them the platform to further their movement. So years later, as a Black creative and a Filipino creative, I thought that it was very important for me with the platform that I have to share that platform with these other local artists and allow them to amplify their voice in a different way, which is through visual art.
so you've done a great job over the years that I've seen you of one doing the culture justice in the ways that you've operated. Talk specifically about why you took on that responsibility in terms of even as you talk about organizations thinking about allyship, but also identifying where there wasn't an allyship at times.
Yeah, I think this is a very loaded question. I think as a biracial first-gen American on my mother's side and of fifth, sixth, seventh generation on my father's side, I think that as that individual, this is a daily thing. It is something that I am a living testament of and also an everyday victim of. And I think it's really important for people like myself, like our VP, to identify as who we are, to shine a light on the prejudices that still exist in today.
No, and I appreciate it. I didn't mean to ask it as a loaded questions, but I think loaded sometimes is like a setup. But it's like I asked the question because when you talk specific about these dual realities, those are the times that we see our bridge, and in the ways that even how you think about. Let's think about the work that you create are bridges for people to kind of see and find themselves. In the context of the event, what are some of the inspirations for you in terms of why you create the work that you do?
Ooh, that is another
That
good
wasn't
question.
loaded. That wasn't loaded though.
That was another good question. Again, I am in a very beautiful place of flow. I resonated a lot with what Kiana had to say. My first name is Kiana, and I started to go by Violeta when I got in probably fourth year of undergrad. And it was because I did a history project on my family, and I found out that my mother wanted to name me Violeta, which is my Lola, my mother's name. And my father, who is Black, knew that I would probably get made fun of with a name like Violeta as a child growing up in America in the 90s. So they gave me the middle name. And through that journey at a HBCU, they take you down this journey of discovering oneself. I realized that my reality is one that is new to America, which is a biracial existence where I can live out loud. So when I got to that space, I feel like everything else kind of flowed. So for me, being an entrepreneur, being an artist in my outside Yale life, being at Yale, the balance for me is to be a bridge and offer, again, the platform to other creatives, give them a chance to let their voice be seen. And then equally the other way, I'm giving my organization the bridge that they need because I speak the language that the other people speak.
So I asked you earlier, and I'm not sure if you finished that piece, and I asked about this inspiration and in terms of your artwork. There was something that I saw where there was one eye. And we didn't get fully into like that dialogue in terms of the work. What does the one eye mean?
So the painting that you saw was the painting that I did a live rendition over here at the show. And I was literally just in the middle of a painting, and I had stopped, And I came back to the painting, and I got the urge to leave just one eye. The painting was of a Wakanda warrior, and I was painting it sometime last year, maybe the year before, to commemorate the movie. And I never finished it. And I thought about the fact that sometimes when we finish things, it actually brings us back to the beginning, which is your eye being closed, your eye being absent. So I amplified the one eye. And I actually thought about leaving it like that, painting the rest of the face up until the day of this event when you mentioned it. So I added the other eye back, which is a whole nother topic in itself.
So when you think about that, just BLM, but let's focus on like the women's contributions in terms of their work. And so you chose that Wakanda piece, and also just the Woman King. Like, how do those representations kind of fuel the work and kind of think about not just allyship, but also presence that hasn't always been acknowledged?
I think that Alana was one that mentioned this earlier. Artists, or at least myself as an artist, I'll speak for myself, I'm inspired by things that are, and then I'm inspired by things that I want to see. So I think the representation, now getting a platform in the Disney platform, which is one of the largest platforms that is available in America, I think it's a wonderful thing. I think it inspires people. It allows more people to see themselves in fairy tales. But more importantly, some of those things are still being censored. So in what other ways can we communicate? Visual art, person to person, us talking like this. You know, these are other modes of communication, which means that it's another opportunity to inspire.
So I got one, and I think it resonated. I had to go do my homework. It resonated with me in terms of, I do this kind of sociological human behavior work. Recognizing not just the BLM, not just the summer of 2022, but also that we're in Women's Month, that to some degree, the censorship that you're talking about also exists within the art. And how it operates sometimes as funded work or commission work, that it still always sometimes operates as a male-dominated field. And it censors particular art that's created, or it boxes particular work in terms of how females create work or women create work, in terms of what is that's supposed to be. How do you jostle and battle with that in the context of the art world? That's not loaded, though.
Yeah, it is, but I think my answer is very easy. I don't. I don't. I'm not going to fight with something that has already been won. I am here. Like I said, my very existence is something that many people fought against, right? So the movement is here. I think the Renaissance is here. The Renaissance is an awakening that creates a sense of unity with all things, you know. Something as simple as me being able to paint a fist in the colors of the Filipino flag is very freeing, you know. And I think what we need more of is that. I think that that's what inspires me. And what I don't allow to restrict me is questions like that, you know, ideologies like that, actions that align with things like that. I just don't acknowledge them.
I think a good one, and before we kind of get to the end, what does the Renaissance sound like?
Like this, right? Like the Renaissance is a room full of people taking the time to disconnect from devices in 2024 to experience art from the lens of an artist. You know, it sounds like people watching this a week later because they streamed it and it went viral on IG. You know, it's the connection that we all have, that we are aware of, and we do take the time to indulge in. I think that's what the Renaissance sounds like.
But I asked that question intentionally because I think that any movement has a sound that needs to be captured. That's not something you kind of move through or just walk through and kind of intellectualize and have a conversation as a feel-good moment, but there's actually a particular sound and cadence that operates distinctly different, and why it has that particular percussion that other individuals are starting to walk to the same beat and kind of move off the beated path that they were on before to be able to think about allyship or saying that this is something I want to be a part of, but I just don't know because my feet haven't been moving like this. But it's an opportunity, like I can see it talking directly to me.
So the question of, have I ever shared a piece in public to have the public respond to it differently than I interpreted it? Yes, and it is such a beautiful experience. It is something that you can only get from interactions like this, where it is an exhibit, an immersion into the art. It is a reciprocal immersion where I am present with my art and I can hear other people interacting with it. And to have it televised twice, actually, because the first time it happened is when it was happening, and this is the second time that it's happened. So the piece that's actually probably like right behind me, with the hand holding a heart with a frame around it. I initially painted that painting out of heartbreak. I was learning how to use paint therapy as a tool. As a painter, I've painted many things for over 16 years now. I started as a painter. I was the kid that got commissioned by the school to paint murals and stuff. So I had done so many things painting, but I had never painted a painting for myself. And I did not realize that until I was 30 years old, in therapy, unpacking it. And when my therapist asked me, what do I do when I can't use words? I said, paint. And she said, where are all those paintings? I was like, good point. Good point. They're all in my house. I've never shared them. Why don't you share them? It's for me, right? It's my journal. Oh my God, I'm so vulnerable. Like I heard someone say this earlier today. Do you think that it takes vulnerability to paint and then show someone? Yes. I'm giving you a peek into my soul. So that painting for me was a peek into my heartbreak. And to me, that was all it meant. Then I showed it publicly for the first time, and someone present was a heart surgeon. And for him, it reminded him of the moment when he retired, held his last heart in his hand before he retired. And it reminded him of a career, of a job well done, of the freedom to walk away from it because he knew he had poured all he could out of his cup. And he bought the painting on site. And when he told me his story about it, it never occurred to me that someone could look at this painting and relate it back to the feeling of freedom of retiring because they were a heart surgeon. It just had never occurred to me that that was possible. So that was like my aha moment, and to have you ask the question again in a different space, I feel like I'm having it again. Because I feel like the question that you asked earlier, you rephrased this time, and I'm having a different experience.